Welcome to the Heroes of Reality podcast, a podcast about the game of life and the hero's journey we all experience. Let's jump in with our host, Dylan Watkins, as he introduces today's guest.
Welcome, young adventurers. Dylan here. And on today's podcast, I have Ariella Lehrer. She is a PhD and she is the CEO of Legacygames. She's achieved numerous firsts in her 30-year career. Emergency Room, which was she was the executive producer of, and it was the first medical simulation to target consumers. That game plus many numerous sequels sold more than 1 million units at retail. Subsequently, Legacygames established the TV drama genre in video games with 4 Law and Order adventure games. They followed up the success to create more than 25 licensed games and apps, including ER, Criminal Minds, Murder, She Wrote, Ghost Whisperer, Sherlock Holmes, Twilight Zone, Tarzan, Psych, Corolla, amongst others. Currently, Legacygames is one of the largest publishers of casual games at retail, with 14 different boxes on the shelves of the retail partners. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Ariella. Hello. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Nice to see you.
It's good to see you again. It's been a minute. That's awesome. And
Yep.
may the 4th be with you.
Okay, thank you very much. You too.
Love it. So you have an amazing history and background in the areas of gaming and education and medical and all of that, and you have quite the background in the space. I'd love to learn just a little bit about your journey, what got you from being a PhD to going into the gaming space and the journey you've been on.
Well, it's almost 35 years, so it is a long journey. So, trying to summarize all of that. I went to graduate school at Claremont Graduate University, studied cognitive psychology. That's memory, attention, perception, comprehension, intelligence, those kinds of subjects. Mm-hmm. My doctoral dissertation was on how children process information differently depending on the medium. So I was very interested in looking at their memory and comprehension on audio only, video and text. And of course, interactive at that point was just coming into its own. So the Commodore 64, the Apple IIe. So that became part of my study, and just fell in love with personal computers. So as a result of that, when I graduated, I didn't want to be an academic and do academic research. So I ended up working for Jerry Brown. So this was after Jerry Brown was governor the first time in California. And he was a space cadet, but such a forward-thinking, innovative guy. He started 2 educational foundations to look at education and technology. This was in the 80s, so he was really way ahead of everybody else. And I worked with him in these foundations, did that for a while, and then got the bug like every consultant does and decided I wanted to make games for kids. So we made our, and then our very first product out of the gate was a huge success, which then gave me the bug for the rest of my life. It was called Children's Writing and Publishing Center. It was published by the Learning Company. So I went on to produce a whole series of children's educational products, which were really big by then. And then that market imploded that was early 90s. So then I morphed into women's games, and that's where I've been since then, mid-90s.
Got it. So with women's games, is it more like casual mobile games, or what is that when you say women's games? What is the areas? It's purely entertainment, or is there?
Well, it's interesting. Back then, people didn't believe that women played games, right? It was a really tough sell when I would go into Walmart and say, here's a game. It's based on the TV show Law and Order. Women love that TV show. Women love mysteries. Women love detective shows. They're going to buy this game. Please take this game. And then trying to get Walmart to pick it up to put it on the shelf was a tough one. But we learned, even my first, you had mentioned Emergency Room. That was one of our first, I would say, women-oriented games, because women like simulations. They like these kinds of thoughtful games with real content. And it was really the first medical simulation that was designed for the average person. And I noticed how many of our customers were women. It's like, whoa, look at this. And after we did a lot of those games, then I sat next to Dick Wolf at some nonprofit dinner, and I said, Mr. Wolf, we need to do a game based on Law and Order. Of course, back then, that came out, I'm trying to think when that came out, probably early 2000s, the first one. And Universal didn't even have an interactive, person to talk to. I had to talk to the t-shirt guy, to try to do a deal for software. So we made 4 Law and Order games, and they sold really well. And it was clear they were selling to women. Story-based, mystery, strong characters, an adventure sort of puzzle game. And then after that, just everything was sort of focused along those lines, but with different TV licenses. So I did that for a long time. And what we're doing now is slightly different, but still focused on women.
That's super cool. With that, one of the things curious is, why do you think women like those types of narratives, strong characters, mysteries? Is it what about that is it appealing to women specifically, versus other types of games? We'll say first-person shooters or whatever the things might be. What is the appeal there, what are they digging into in some sort of psychology sense?
Well, I don't think I can be particularly deep on it, but if you look at just, for example, Kindle books and what women are very big readers, right? More so, especially in terms of fiction, than men are. And if you look at the detective, mystery, romance genres, I mean, they're dominated by female readers. And so, I think the storytelling and the mystery part is really key. What we're seeing now, which is very interesting in terms of our Walmart sales, murder mystery, true crime, that kind of stuff is really hot.
Yeah.
And that's women of all ages. So I think it's the storytelling, the emotional investment in the character, getting swept up in the story. So, you'll talk about VR and being in another world, and that's sort of what a really good book can do, at least for me. And I think that kind of storytelling integrated with some well-known puzzle mechanics like hidden object games is still very appealing to women. The games are becoming more sophisticated over time. It's not just hidden object. If you look at what's happening in mobile games, you might have those, it's match 3D or hidden object or that type of puzzle mechanic, but then you have then you're earning currency so that you can go back into the game and now decorate or build, or, there's a different core loop now with games.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, you're doing some sort of task that will get you to be able to gather points to have you be more expressive in some way, either world building or creation or something. So it empowers them to do the things that they want to do, which is a more of an expressive, creative style. That's interesting. That's really cool. When you create, when you have like an idea for a game, let's just say whether it's a TV title or anything else, you're like, I think this would work. I think women would like it, or a specific subsect of the people would do it. What is your process for validating that idea? Do you just go and build it and get it out the door and say, I know? Or what does it really look like for you to tell if your idea has legs?
Well, there are two answers to that. One is Legacygames. If you go to legacygames.com, we are reselling other people's games, and in particular, a lot of indie game developers. So it's pretty exciting to me if they have a casual game that we think will speak to our Walmart audience. We sell about 3,000 units every week at Walmart. So we know this customer really, really well. And if we see a game on Steam, for example, that seems lost, it's a small game, but it gets great reviews. It may have won awards, but nobody, that casual customer isn't going to Steam and isn't finding that game. So we'll pluck that game, we'll put it on Legacygames, and then we sell it and we see, does it sell on our digital platform? If it does, then at Walmart, we'll bundle it together with a few other similar games and then sell it on the shelf. So we test it out first digitally before it gets into a box. In terms of, we have a brand new mobile game coming out in about 2 months, and that has gotten so sophisticated, Dylan. I mean, it's, we'll test the game. We'll probably use the Google beta testing service, and we'll have hundreds of people. We will collect all kinds of data. It's very important retention data. It's, all the data that we need to have. And then we'll look and see if we want to go bigger with this game or if we want to drop it. So once you have that core loop developed, you expose it to your customers, you see what the issues are, you try to fix those issues. If you can't fix them, you just drop it. It's not worth it. You can't pay for user acquisition if the lifetime value of the customer isn't there. You're just throwing money down a deep hole. So it's mostly based on testing. You have to have enough confidence in your idea to at least get it to the point where you can test it.
Yeah. What do you think? And one of the things, it shows that you're a professional space because you don't have an identity attachment to the product. You're just like, I'm going to put this out there. I've made enough of these to where, no, let's just let go of it. And so I have a follow-up question to that. But before I get into that part of it, what do you think are the most important metrics that early people could make? They're doing prototype testing. They're putting it out there. What do you think are the main core metrics that you're looking at to say, oh, this is clearly hot, or this thing has power behind it?
Well, as I said, I think retention is number one. And there are very specific retention, metrics you need to reach in order to be appealing to a distributor. That's the very first thing they ask you. What are your retention metrics? At day 1, day 7, day 30. But beyond that, so if you have the right retention, you can many times fix the monetization, which is of course another key metric. Are you making any money? Because maybe the player's sticking around and you got good retention, but you're not generating any money, and that won't work either. Yeah. That's a lot easier to fix. So you can put in multiple, okay, now the store was only in this section of the game. Now we're going to put it in 5 other sections, and all of a sudden your, monetization goes up, or you can add another level of currency, but if you don't have a game that is sticky, that is really hard to fix. That's after the fact.
That's an amazing point. You're right. Because if there's no one in there to play it because nobody wants to play it, it's very hard to sell to them. Versus if they're in there and they're hanging out all day long, there's an opportunity to sell to them because they're already there. So you've just fixed those pieces. So make sure they want to be there, and then give them more of what they want. Just got to pay for it. That's powerful. Yep. Has there been a time in your past where you ignore these metrics, or where you've been burnt? Has there been how did you learn that lesson? Is there any stories of your past where you didn't listen to that, you pushed through in your gut and it was painful, or what caused you to be so matter of fact about this?
Yes, there was one look, I've made tons of mistakes, as anyone who's been making as many products as I have will tell you, but I would say the one that almost sank the company. So we had this big success with this emergency room game. We were really fortunate. We came out with that game on the same month as the ER TV show. Remember that great TV show? I mean, that was in the good old days of television. 25 million viewers on a Thursday night watching ER. And our emergency room game came out the same month. And we had gotten the trademark for emergency room. So Warner Brothers came after us and it's like, hey, sorry, we have the trademark for emergency room. So that's what we call ourselves. So anyway, I think that really helped, it just completely fortuitous timing. And so after we sold this type of game for a couple of years, I thought, why don't I get the ER license? And this was the same time that we had the Law and Order license. And it's like, hey, nobody was bringing these TV dramas into games. We were the first company to do that. So I'm like, that's a good idea, right? That sounds like a really good idea. So I way overpaid for the license because it was Warner Brothers, and that's what you did. And then I assembled this team of 40 people. I had, which was a huge team, back then to do. And then I raised $1 million, and I thought that sounds like a huge amount of money. And then we're going to do a sim-like project. I don't know if the Sims had actually come out yet or not at that time. Maybe they had just launched or something. Yeah, with $1 million, I'm going to do a sim product with the ER license, which was a little bananas. And of course, that did not have a happy ending, that particular product.
The calibration, it's hard to calibrate on numbers that you're not used to in that size. Because I'm looking at like a 40-person team of developers and artists and everything. I'm like, what's your burn on that? I'm like, that's a painful. That's an
about 2 months.
Yeah, I know. I was like, what? I'm like 40, $1 million. I mean, even in counting inflation, I was like, that's gonna be a bit. But I appreciate the eyes though. So then you saw that, and then. So then you recognized that it wasn't going to pan. You didn't have it was a resource gap that you had to really get to where you wanted to go. And at that point, you couldn't raise anymore and things like that. So then you had to like let it go and then kind of use it as a powerful $1 million lesson.
Yeah, it wasn't actually. There weren't 40 people on the project. There were 40 people in the company, however.
Oh, okay, yeah.
At that time, we were working on some other things too. And the $1 million was just for ER, but it clearly, and we finished the product and got it out there, but, it just clearly wasn't enough, to do it well. And I learned a really very, very tough lesson. And so after that, because I've always been an entrepreneur and it's been my own company and it's my own money that I'm risking.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, I pulled back and we got other kinds of licenses, but not necessarily the #1 show on television. Interestingly enough, one of the most successful games I've ever done is Murder, She Wrote. We did a series of games based on that TV show, and that's such a hoot. When I was negotiating for another NBC Universal license, and the guy there, not the t-shirt guy, but the later guy, who just is a wonderful man and knows his business cold. And he said, Ariella, I'll give you that license, but you have to take Murder, She Wrote. And I said, I don't want Murder, She Wrote. That's old. What do you? He goes, Ariella, it's a really good match for your customers. And it has a devoted fan base, and you got to do it. So I took Murder, She Wrote, and he was right. People love that brand. And so anyway, you can't always tell, but and not all the top licenses are necessarily the ones that are going to work the best.
That's a powerful lesson, that even though your gut's telling you, like, I don't want Murder, She Wrote, like, but someone else had the insight and they had a different perspective. So then did that kind of give you a new lesson perspective on not always trusting your gut instinct on taking titles and things like that? Is that gave you?
Yes, I think if you don't learn humility real quick in this business, you're in trouble. I mean that sincerely. I do feel I'm on really good ground as it relates to our customers because I have been selling to these women. This is middle America, 40 plus. They like to play games for relaxation, for distraction from their troubles, a little bit of challenge, but not too much. Get me engaged in another world so I can forget, where I am. And I feel like I know these customers really well, but beyond that,
Mhm.
no,
Yeah.
learning
You-
all the time.
But you've been servicing them again and again and again. That you formed this mental model relationship with them that you can
Mhm.
understand how they'll respond.
Right.
What do you think in terms of, you talked on this, humility is one characteristic that's a powerful thing to learn as you go through this. What are some other just top of mind mindsets or skill sets that people need if they're going to go into the space of whether they're building games or entertainment games or education games, and going into this space? uh are there other key mindsets or skill sets that if you could wave a magic wand and just dub to somebody else, are there ones that come top to mind that you think would be the most valuable to them?
Oh gosh, I would, it's funny. I was just looking at a list of those very same, that very question. I should just go read the list because it was a great one. Actually, I'm tempted to do that. I saved it. I thought,
Mm.
that's a good
Yeah.
list.
What
Uh,
yeah, what's stuck without that list?
well, yeah, no, seriously, look at this. I'm not making this up. I have to show it to you. I would say that, and this is just to be true to myself, Dylan.
Mhm.
I mean, I cannot prevaricate very well. I mean, I can try, and on occasion I have, but the reality is that uh, I like to deal with people honestly. You and I have had some
Mhm.
dealings, and I try to be respectful to people, but I'm also I tell them what I'm thinking,
Mhm.
and I feel like as a leader, and that was one of the things on the list: lead, don't manage. But as a leader in my organization, I try to be really transparent. People, especially young people, they need to be motivated, but to be motivated, they need to understand what's going on and why you ask them to do a certain thing. What's that overall objective? Maybe you have a better idea of how to get there, but this is my idea of how to get to this goal that we're all striving for.
Mm.
And even transparent to the point of sharing financials and all kinds of stuff. It's really, how do I expect you to know what to do and make good decisions on the ground when I'm not there, unless you have the full picture. So, and tools like Slack, I think, and even the way we use Google Docs is really makes it easier to share information than in the old days.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's on a channel and they're seeing the same thing that you're posting there. So I don't know. I think transparency, honesty, respect. This is, for parents, as well as your employees, right? You respect them as people, as individuals, and they respect you back and you demand that. That's like a basic currency here between us.
Yeah.
Um,
There is a parent-child relationship with leaders and the people that they lead through the process, where you can be their friends, but at the same time you are a caretaker. You are providing for them. You are supplying them, but at the same time you have to all like work together. So I could definitely see that as a pattern. Do you have, because you talked about lead, don't manage, do you have any rituals around that? Are there any daily or weekly things that you do to demonstrate leadership to them? Is there, you talked about showing financials, being brutally honest or transparent to the point where they can understand it. You talked about inspiring but not demanding. So here's why we need to, because of X, Y, and Z.
mhm.
Are there ritual behaviors that you do as a leader to to create the respect, the honesty, the transparency to lead? anything that's top of mind?
Again, this is, after 4 children, 8 grandchildren, all these children in my life, I would say the best thing you can do is is be a model. There are no words. You can speak, but it's all about how you actually behave, what you do. It was funny, many years ago, I converted to Judaism, and in order to marry my husband of, 45 years, and one of the things that I really admired about Judaism was that it's not about Judaism doesn't try to figure out what you're thinking. It's all about your actions. And there's 617 laws, if you're an Orthodox Jew, that you're supposed to follow.
Wow.
And if you do all of those, you're a really good Jew. Well, of course, I'm not an Orthodox Jew, so that doesn't mean much to me. But it's the idea that it's behavior. And that's because how can you assume what somebody's really thinking or feeling? You can only tell it by their outward expression. And so I believe that. And I would say I don't have any rituals or traditions other than trying to exemplify the behavior that I'm looking for in my employees. So if I don't expect them to respond to an email in today's world with COVID, right? We're working all the time. Everyone is. But I want them to take the evenings off and the weekends off most of the time, so I don't bother them. I try to be respectful of their time. And if I don't want to work those hours, then I don't, impinge on them. So it's, that's an example of the kind of approach that I have. I love mentoring young people. I mean, that is truly looking at an arc of a career, that is truly one of the things. It pleases me no end to see people who have worked for me, rise up in big companies like Microsoft and other places, and to say, they learned something at Legacy, and they went on from there. So anyway.
Oh, that's beautiful. So then you're almost like a secondary proud parent, and you can see them grow and rise and level up through everything. Oh, that's incredible.
Very satisfying.
Is there anything like, outside of the Legacygames, do you do other mentoring or advising? Do you teach other places? You're telling me your last name means teacher. So I was wondering if there's any other places that you teach or you mentor people.
I have over the years taught. I taught a class at UCLA once, educational technology. I've taught in the Cal State system also. But teaching really takes a lot of time to do it well, and I just didn't have that time. My volunteer work is mostly focused on foster kids. It's interesting. I've sat on a bunch of boards, but you have to know yourself. And I think I am much more talented and inspired by working one-on-one with children, as opposed to sitting on the board and making, more corporate decisions. I can do either, but I really prefer the one-to-one. And so I work with a foster care organization called CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocate. And I have 2 kids at the moment, and that's inspiring. And oh my God, do I learn from these kids? I can go into detail if you want, but that's something that's meaningful.
Let's dive into that. You're learning two-way communications going on. They're keeping you hip on these things, keeping that sword sharp of yours. What do you like? Let's talk about this, because again, this is mentorship. You're giving advice and guidance and going back and forth of that, and you're seeing the power in his one-on-one communications versus sitting on top of a risk board and moving around pieces. You're actually in the trenches going back and forth. So what are some lessons and things that you've gotten from working with these CASA children?
Well, it's interesting. The most recent literally, I have it on my desk here. You just have to see this. Okay, I don't know if you can see it.
There you go. Painting.
Do you know what a diamond painting is, Dylan? Yeah.
Not
So
one
you're
idea.
about to learn something too
Yeah,
here.
let's do this.
So the 16-year-old, she's African American, lives in the hood in LA, and I can't say too much about the specifics, but she told me it was her 16th birthday, and of course these kids have nobody, right? So I want to, let's celebrate your 16th birthday. So she picks out this thing on Amazon called a diamond painting. Well, I'm looking at it. I can't quite figure out what it is. Okay, fine. That's what you want. I order it. I actually ended up ordering two. So one I gave her last week, and this is the other one. It turns out what a diamond painting is, because I made her unwrap it in front of me and show me.
Mm-hmm.
It is a 3D paint by number set. So it basically, you have one piece of cloth, you put on top of that cloth a sticky paper with numbers in it, and then you have a whole color palette and 1,000 pearls, and then you have something like a hypodermic needle, and you stick the pearls in the needle and you match the color pearl to the spot on the picture. And it made this, and it makes this amazing picture. It was actually anime. So this
Cool.
LA African American 16-year-old is in love with anime. And so that was the other thing I learned. She gave me the 3 top shows to watch on anime, which, I mean, I obviously heard of it, but you know how big it is on Netflix? I mean, I found so many series on Netflix. Anyway, so I was laughing with her last weekend, and I said, look, you're teaching, what is it? By your students you'll be taught. I think that was from the King and I musical. That was one of my favorite songs there. And I said, look at this, look what I'm learning from you. And she got so happy because, you know, I'm always like, blah, 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 lecture, 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 study more, do this, do that. And she got very excited to say, yeah, I can teach you too. So anyway, the only point out of all of that is it can be very, very rewarding, and it's much more rewarding for me than it is for her, I think.
That's beautiful. And it's a two-way street too. And she probably feels good and she's more engaged. And as you know, the more engaged the student, the more that they'll actually learn. So that two-way communication, super duper important. And I'm a big fan of anime, by the way. So that's so I was like, I'm like, I wonder what the 3 animes were that she liked.
No, here, do you want to hear?
Yeah, I would love to know what they are.
I started watching one, and actually I can't believe what good storytelling they are.
Anime is Japan's Hollywood, right? So if you look at anime in Japan's Hollywood, that they have some of the most incredible storylines that will get you, because there's, you know, it doesn't take anything to make an anime, so people are dumping it and the popular ones get picked up, you know.
So Violet Evergarden. So that's the first one I started watching, and I got sucked in right away. The story of this young woman, and she was also a orphan. And then one is called Land of the Lustrous. So here you go.
I'm writing them down right now. Land of Lustrous.
And the third one is Anohana, Anohana. So I don't know about that.
HNA.
So Anohana.
Anohana.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I don't know any of those. I might know all the boy ones. That might be the thing. I'm gonna go check those out because I'm super curious. I love checking out animes. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. It's one of the ones if you find me wasting time late at night, it's probably watching some sort of anime.
Well, and she is desperate to go to Japan. She absolutely can't wait to go to Japan. Now, who would have thought, you know, that it just wasn't in my consciousness. So anyway, it's wonderful to get out of our shell, out of our communities, and reach out and see what else is going on.
That's beautiful. So with Legacygames and everything you're working on, you were doing educational entertainment. You shifted into this more of the women, casual gaming, space area.
Mhm.
Is that where you're currently at right now? Is that the target that you're looking at? Are you going to continue to build in that area, or what's on the latest and greatest for you in Legacy Games?
Well, so a couple things in terms of legacy games. So I was for the last 3 years president at Hit Point
Mm,
Studios, and it was exciting because I wanted to get into AR, and I had worked with Paul Hake at Hit Point on a couple of projects before I actually joined them. And we worked with Niantic, we worked with Google, we did some really cool stuff, worked with a very large 3D dental imaging company, bunch of projects, bunch of toy companies. I left HitPoint, I had a 3-year contract with them,
mm.
and I left HitPoint in October, and they just announced this week that they've been purchased. So I'm very happy about, I made a small contribution to that process, and had some interest in the company. So they have just been
Congratulations.
purchased. Yeah, it's
That,
great.
that's awesome.
So then I came back to Legacy in October after
Mm,
having been away because, frankly, all we were doing was selling CD-ROMs to Walmart, and I had a couple part-time people, and it didn't require much of my time. And so what we're doing now, since I've come back to Legacy, is move as quickly as we can to onboard those Walmart customers to make them digital customers on legacygames.com.
oh,
And it's been really fun. I'm learning the ins and outs of Facebook marketing, retargeting all these customers who come to us from Walmart and selling them new products that they like, but
mm,
now doing it digitally. And bringing on, also trying to expand the product selection, because I think people are ready for a little bit more. So bringing on some more, like merge puzzle games and things that maybe some of these customers haven't seen before, but that will still be really appealing to them. So it's been, we've really had some good success.
mm.
And that's what I'm trying to do this year. And we'll see how easily I can convert those customers to digital.
Is that
Meanwhile, go ahead.
motivated? Is that motivated through the fact that COVID and the big box isn't getting as much traction, or is it what was the motivation to go into onto the and shifting it away from the retail to the digital?
Yeah, well, I would tell you that our sales were actually flat last year at retail, which is a good thing because we all know that physical products are going away, right? Physical games are going away. And that, in fact, is my motivation,
Mm,
because look, if you're Hewlett Packard, you're not even making laptops with, drives anymore, DVD drives. So there's a small but you know good market. I think we forget on the coast that our customers, many of them, they still have flip phones. They don't even have smartphones. They don't have good internet access. There are reasons, and maybe they're collectors too, but there are reasons why they buy. This is an example of a popular game that we
mm,
sell at Walmart, so-called murder mystery.
yeah,
The reason why they buy this stuff. So that's why I'm really hoping that at least some of this infrastructure bill gets passed, right? So we can get good internet access for people, and they can really download these products. So that's my
yeah.
motivation. And also, I'm at the stage where I don't want to devote I don't have another lifetime to devote to making Legacy a success,
Sure,
So I want to see how quickly we can do this.
that's beautiful.
Um, the other thing that I'm working on, because I still am fascinated with AR,
Mm.
is a very interesting project, which I haven't talked about before, but if you want to know about it, Dylan, I'll tell you.
I want to know about it. Is interesting AR project. You have my interest. It sounds cool.
Well, when we were at Hit Point, we did a couple of tours. Like one was for a city in Massachusetts where you're able to, with your smartphone, obviously your smartphone knows where you are, and using GPS, you can navigate using your smartphone from one point of interest to another. Now, there are plenty of apps out there like that. And they can be very useful. I remember we went to the city of Savannah, and there's a beautiful app you can download that will literally take you, within 4 square blocks and take you to every statue or, house where somebody famous lived and give you all the information you need. So I was thinking about that, and I was talking to someone I know who is an urban planner. And they were explaining to me that one of their biggest problems is that if you're a municipality and you want to add a bike lane, or you want to, put in some trees or a park bench, or in today's world, you have to have community input for just about everything. You are obligated because of the funding source, not even if it's the federal government or a foundation. They want you to have to go through a planning process whereby you have a community meeting and you have people come and mostly complain, right? And, bitch and moan. I don't want that. That's a change. We don't like that. And so this is a process that every urban planner is very familiar with and hates. And so our idea, and we've been working on this since January, no, actually since before that, it must be November, I guess. An app we call Pebble Xr. So we have a website and a video of how it works. And essentially what it is, there's a desktop version where the urban planner can create a tour. So you can decide at this street corner, that's the start of the tour. The first stop is going to be, 100 feet away. And at that point, the user is going to be asked a question. Would you rather see the deciduous tree or the fir tree here? And then you have a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So it's a platform for designing these tours and gathering consumer input. And then it generates an app that then the community can use. And so right from their mobile phone, they're actually taking the tour and they're giving input. And meanwhile, all these 3D assets are being visualized, through your phone. Oh, you want a bike lane? Okay, look down there on the road. Okay, you see the bike lane? Or would you rather have it on this side of the street? And then you're swiping this side or that side. Okay, I'd rather have this side. And you're voting and tabulating those votes. So this particular group we've already done a demo for the city of West Hollywood and one for Long Beach. And it's going pretty well. So that's another project I'm working on.
That's a great project. With augmented reality, for me, what I've seen is I've only seen real, because like a lot of things are gimmicks. Most things are gimmicks in a lot of areas and things like that. And each technology has different actual value adds, right? For VR, things that are rare, difficult, dangerous, or edge cases, it's a value add kind of thing. For augmented reality, there's only a couple of value adds to the system other than, oh, isn't that cool? One is a data overlay on an environmental. So you put the augmented thing over a pipe and you can see which way the water's flowing. You get additional data about that item. Another one is remote expert assistance. So I'm showing you this thing. What wire do I cut? Cut the red wire. And the third one is remote collaboration. And so that you can have a bunch of people all looking at the same object, talking about what that thing is. And so what I like about that is you've taken several of these different pieces and you've combined them together, these actual value add stacks in a real specific use case where you're having remote collaboration, an actual expert being able to actually see the data and see what's going on with it. And then you're generating data overlays on a contextual environment. So actually, I like those combinations because it actually has a lot of value adds going through the system.
No, that's a great description. I think that it's really fun because it starts feeling, it's a little gamified and starts feeling like crowdsourcing. Oh, 35% of the people like this, and 65 like this, and so you get a sense of, well, what are people in the neighborhood? You get a much better, much more diverse cross section of the community actually giving input. And usually these budgets, it's anywhere from 10 to 20% of the total budget is allocated for these community meetings. And of course, in the time of COVID, there were no community meetings. So I think and I would say the other thing that's happened is cloud anchors are really cool, Google Cloud Anchors. And so what we had trouble doing before, and you had to just use targets because that was the only thing that would really work well enough with AR Core and AR Kit. But now, and Apple has its own version of anchors, cloud anchors. But now you can, as the person creating the tour, so we're licensing the tour maker and we're licensing the Pebble app that the consumer uses that gets spit out. And so with the Google Cloud Anchors, you can really set, this is where it is, at this exact spot. It's not, within 20 feet of that. And for the kind of stuff that we're doing, it has to be that precise.
Yeah.
So GPS by itself ain't going to cut it. So that's another feature that I think, is really helpful in doing this more precision type of work.
Yeah, can you talk to me a little bit more about cloud anchors? Because I know, so GPS is you're using global positioning, and then I know that you can do, like, you can scan the environment with your phone, it kind of maps it out. And so exactly how do you, because I'm not as familiar with cloud anchors.
Well, the way that we're using it, so you can't do this remotely. You have to place a cloud anchor when you're actually in that location. So the designer is creating it on their desktop, the full thing, asking, writing the questions, checking, okay, which 3D assets do we need, placing where. So that's all happening at their desk in their office. Then they go out with the Pebble app. And they thought on their map, and it looked like using GPS and a mapping service, I thought I put it right at that corner. Well, once you get out there, it's like, oh no, it's actually 10 feet away. So then the designer has to now edit what they've done and say, no, I'm going to place an anchor. So you plop the anchor at this exact corner, and then remembers it. So you can come back the next day and that anchor is still there. So before we would have had to actually put a target, maybe in AR now you can recognize a stop sign or, some other symbol. It doesn't have to be a QR code, obviously. And then you would have to tell the consumer, this is the way we did demos in the past, go to this street corner, go hold your phone up to the stop sign. Oh, we recognize where you are. Okay, now you can start the tour. So cloud anchors have allowed us that, we don't have to do that only, that's a supplement. So it just has, and then Google, the other thing that's part of it, and Apple's doing this too for select cities, where if you scan the environment, because of all the mapping that's been done previously, these devices know where you're standing, because they recognize the buildings, they recognize the streets, the houses on the streets. It's sort of extraordinary. So as all of that mapping has gotten better, plus, and because it's already part of the database that we're trying to match to, and then plus the cloud anchors have become much more stable and they stick, where you place them. So you don't have the problems with drift so much as we've had in the past. It's getting much better. And I really don't think you could have done what we're trying to do here 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, I remember trying to do some setting markers down, and I was doing it indoors in a place. And GPS was not a thing, so we had to use like iBeacons. We needed some sort of thing that would get you in the proximity of a thing, and it still wasn't accurate. It was just like vicinity type of stuff. So it sounds
right.
better. And I also imagine it'd be very useful from a planner standpoint to see the flow. to see the, because you can see how people move through the environmentals, and you can look at analyze.
Mhm.
You can see, okay, if these people are walking through the environment, it's like one of those typical situations where you're at like a college campus and there's a grassy knoll area and it says don't walk in the grass, and then there's a clear path carved out because people are like, yeah, no, I'm gonna go just carve a line right through that.
I'm cutting through the hypotenuse here. I want
Yeah,
short
yeah.
bud.
Oh, that's great. So let me ask you, what's your, with Legacy Games now? What's your holy grail for Legacy Games? Do you have a vision of what you want to do with the company? Is it a build it and sell it? Is it something else, or what do you ultimately want to do with it?
Well, I sort of alluded to it before. Once I came back from Hit Point and I
Mm,
looked at Legacy Games and I looked at the landscape of our competitors,
mm,
because there's certainly, I mean, Big Fish Games was a huge competitor,
mm,
10 years ago. And then I'm not sure exactly what the timing was when they were first purchased, because they became a really big player in the casino
mm,
mobile space, and they were purchased by a gaming company. And then since then, they've really, pivoted where the money is, much the bigger market and the money, which is mobile gaming.
mm,
And so between the casino style slots games and the mobile gaming free to play, they have really, in my opinion, left their roots behind, which are these PC downloadable casual game customers. And the funny thing is, Dylan, that I have almost killed me, but apart from a couple of years
yeah.
like that, it's been a profitable little business. Somebody looking at it from the outside would say, oh, that's just what did some funder tell me? Oh, that's a lifestyle business. I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. I'm happy to take this money. But that's the way they viewed it. I'm not sure if it's because of the way I presented it or presented myself. But so we've been just chugging along, making money all these years, right? And some
Yep.
years we make more money than others. So I come back to Legacy and looking with a little fresher eyes, and it's like, our competitors are taking, and there are 3 or 4 other major casual PC game downloadable competitors with their portals. And it's like, they're taking their eye off the ball here. And I had this feeling, and I could totally be wrong about this, but we have made a business out of serving the laggards at Walmart.
Mm,
And I'd say laggards in the most affectionate way possible. These are people who do not want to give up their collections of CDs,
mhm,
who don't want to download games, who don't, are afraid to download games because of viruses, who just like the way they do it and like our games. And we have made a business of serving that long tail at retail. Everybody else left. That's why, we have 14 of the 18 slots at Walmart for casual games.
yeah.
And I look at the digital space and I'm thinking, you know what? I think the same thing is going on here now,
Mhm,
where people are moving to greener pastures. And the question's really going to be, and the answer that I don't have yet is there a significant market left,
mm,
for these casual gamers who want to download PC games? Or
mm,
have they all moved on to free to play Facebook or mobile?
mhm.
So that's what I'm exploring, and we'll see if I'm, right or not.
That's interesting. That's great, and it's great because a lot of people, they want the. Some people, when they get into like entrepreneurship or whatever it might be, they need the latest, greatest, the most cutting edge, the greatest things like that. But they often say that the way that you can tell someone's a pioneer is that they're face down with arrows in their back, right? And by looking at like the late majority or the laggers or what you want to call them, you know that that's a marketplace. But also knowing when it's a good time to shift into a space, and shifting into the digital space, and especially taking a um, a pool of people that you are already getting, and then saying we're gonna basically shift them into the digital area, and then be able to grow that base out. Because of course, like with most businesses, the power comes with the list. If you have a large list of customers, you can service them by making them more offers and things like that, and more
Mhm.
direct connection.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's a powerful thing. How will you know whether or not there will be an opportunity there for you? What would be indicators for you? What facts would have to be true? What would be some visual indicators so that you would know that because again, this is you are you have enough um, wherewithal to understand that, okay, I'm going to make an assumption. My gut's telling me this, but you're also disconnected enough from you saying I have to be right all the time that you're willing to back up and pivot, which is a very powerful place to be, is to be on that razor's edge between gut instinct and market data, right? And so
Mhm.
what's the market data? How do you find out that things, and how will you know if you're on track?
Well, I've set some very high goals for the website, and both in terms of revenue, units, new accounts. We have specific goals for what we need to reach this year. And frankly, if I don't reach those goals, I may look to sell the company or bring in new leadership, or I don't have all the answers, but
Mhm.
I'm pursuing this path. This is my focus, and these are my goals for this year. There was something else that you said that I thought was interesting. It's uh, oh, I did. So the biggest issue that we have,
Mhm.
if you think about this for 10 seconds, it's obvious, which is, where do the customers come from? So we
Mhm.
do have Walmart customers we're feeding into this, but we have to expand that market too. We have to find more customers, and where are we going to find them? So one of the first things I did when I came back was, we are launching 3 promotional programs, one with a chip maker, one with a hardware maker, and one with a um, PC accessories company. And we're doing promotions with them, with free games and all kinds of things, in an effort to drive traffic to Legacy Games. Because, in the old days, Big Fish would spend $1 million a month easily on SEO, driving
Mhm.
traffic to the website.
Yeah.
I don't have that luxury, of spending like that.
Yeah.
So we have to find other, more creative ways to build up our audience. But if we're successful, then I think we'll have, as you say, the end result might just be a really great list, of customers to whom now we know that demographic, and we can sell other things to them. I'm not sure. And the other thing, I'm enough of a gamer that I still have that hope. This new game that we're coming out with, this mobile game,
Mhm.
Pearls of Atlantis, it's a wonderful casual mobile game, match 3 with physics.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll be lucky, and we'll be one of the 10% of companies in the mobile store, not a zombie, and maybe we'll make some money on that. I'm hoping we make some money on that. And that will be free to play and be hugely challenging for us, because mostly I have lived in the premium space
Mhm.
with games, not free to play. So that's another, you can always hope, to win the jackpot. That's another hope I have for this year.
I love you have a very healthy balance between hope and, I don't want to say cynicism, but a realistic, because most of the people that aren't in the gaming space, but from the outside in, oh, I'll make a game, it'll be huge and it'll be great. But you're like, well, your structure was like, if we're lucky, we'll be the 10% that aren't zombies. It's a very different statement than most people getting into the space. So I like you have a very good healthy balance between, because you need both. If you're completely all sunshine and roses, when you get hit, you get knocked down and it's hard to get back up. If you're all cynicism, you don't give yourself the opportunity to really like take chances. And also like the fact you're spinning up multiple opportunities. You're finding these adjacent partners that would be a symbiotic relationship between you have gaming, they have some sort of hardware adjacent product, and then you're win-win together. They're the value add for their customers. You ideally possibly get some more customers, and you build that up from there. So I like the fact that you have multiple strategies that you're trying, that you're like, I don't know what's gonna hit, but I'm gonna swing in all these different directions. Maybe one will, but either way, we're gonna keep trying. And so I think that's fantastic. With all of that in mind, what advice would you give to a young and up and comer? Maybe it is a young girl from the hood that's in anime but also wants to get into gaming. Maybe it's someone else that like. What advice would you give to somebody that would be moving into the gaming space? Maybe some hard lessons that you've learned along the way, insights that you could give them that might help save them a couple headaches, or any other insights you'd have for the path.
Yeah, now what I do is I tend to go to the schools. There's so many different schools that are training people to be game developers, all different aspects of game development. Two of the young women I work with all the time, one I plucked from the game development program at UC Santa Clara, and the other one, who's an immigrant young woman, she was in an art school. And I love working with these young women. And both of them, I think they exemplify the I'll do anything, anything you ask me to do, even if it feels like grunt work, I'll do it. And we're going to work really hard and work very collaboratively. So when one of them is too busy, the other one just jumps in, and vice versa. I think for my part, I try to make all sorts of training opportunities available for them. So when I see $850, but you learn everything you need to learn about Google Analytics, okay, fine. You go to that class. And here's another class on whatever, Facebook retargeting, or I bring in, this is something I've done fairly recently, is bring in consultants who have specific expertise. And I say to the consultant, you're here to train Amanda. That's what I'm not going to expect you to manage these campaigns over a long period of time. You'll show us how to do it. You'll show us the ins and outs. You'll train her, and then, we'll be off. So really focused on training and education and learning new skills. I think you have to have that right mindset. You're going to make mistakes. I understand that. It's forgiven in advance. Just try. Yeah. And just really making yourself available to learn everything you can.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Just gather as many skills, get the mindset along the way, level up the abilities. That's beautiful. So is there any last things you would like to say before you let people know how to get a hold of you and find out more about what you do?
Well, you should come by and visit legacygames.com. You come by today, it'll look different than it will in a week from now. Every week it's something new. We're changing and just trying out new things, right? And seeing, did they click on this more? What about that slider? How, it's so that's fun, and it feels very experimental to me now. Yeah. But I think people should come by and see what it is that we're selling. And true to our Walmart roots, it is the best value for your money. It's like buy 5 games for the price of 1 is essentially what we're offering there. So you can't beat it.
That's awesome.
So other than that, I think it's just I've really enjoyed talking to you. It's been an amazing career. Really, if you would have told me, 35 years ago, this is what I would have spent my professional career doing, I would have thought you're nuts. But it grabbed hold of me, and I've been involved for that period of time, and have really loved it and met some great people along the way. So
beautiful. I can feel you loving it. It's awesome to feel your passion, your excitement. You still got that fire burning bright even after 35 years. So this is great. Ariella, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate you being on the show.
You are welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Have a beautiful day. I'll talk to you soon.
Okie doke. Bye
All
bye.
right. Bye now.
Thank you for listening to the Heroes of Reality podcast. Check out heroesofreality.com for more episodes. While you're there, you can also take the Heroes Quiz to find out what kind of hero you are. Or, if you have a great story and want to be on the podcast, tell us why your hero's journey will inspire others. Thank you for listening.